In this video, I'm going to show you how to oversubscribe your public token sale by as much as 66x. Recently, we worked with TRIA on their sale, which got $66 million in commits for a $1 million sale. And I'm going to share some lessons we've learned from handling multiple public sales with the teams we work with, the lessons we've learned so far, and how to make sure your sale goes well. Now, I'm going to start with the golden rule. The golden rule is you should only do a sale if you're confident you can oversubscribe it. And you need to be like 1,000% confident, right? So what you need to realize is if you're doing a token sale, especially if it's at attractive terms, you're cannibalizing demand from post-TGE. Now, this isn't a bad thing because if a sale is done well and it's like 10x, 20x oversubscribed, you actually create a ton of demand and that demand isn't filled and that flows over post-TGE. So in the ideal scenario, when you have a massive oversubscription, you now have demand for the token after the token generation event because of the fact that there's so many people who wanted to buy but couldn't get in. So don't do a token sale if you think you'll sell out 80% or maybe barely just subscribe it out. It should be more so that, okay, if you want to raise $1 million, you should hope for around $10 million in strong interest, right? Now, what happens if you don't get that strong interest? Let's say you try to raise $1 million sale, but you're like, hey, just in case I want to be, have it be a $2 million sale, just because I want to raise the maximum amount. And let's say you reach 1.4 out of $2 million. Now, what you have done is all of that demand that would have come in post-TGE, a lot of those people have now gotten into the pre-sale. And so you really risk a big dump on TGE because of the fact that those people have bought into the pre-sale and now there's not that much demand on the token generation, right? So that's something to keep in mind. Now, what do you do here? There are two options. One is you reduce the amount you want to raise. So for example, if you were going to try to raise a $2 million round, go raise a 500K round, make sure that oversubscribes 5 to 10x. There's more scarcity, there's more exclusivity, and that extra demand then goes into TGE because now they've already mentally committed to buying your token. So that's a golden rule there. Now, the second thing you could do is you could make the terms better. So if you were going to raise at a 50 million FDV, let's say there's a 2-month linear unlock, whatever it may be, maybe you make it 100% unlock on TGE, maybe you reduce the valuation 30 million. So there's two levers you can play with. But as long as you can make sure you oversubscribe this massively, that's like the big thing. And it can't be over optimistic. It needs to be like 100% it's going to be a thing. So now how do you drive demand for the token sale? Now, the first lever is obviously your own community, right? Like if you've been building a community, if people are interested organically, you will see demand from those people, and that should hopefully drive a good amount. Now, the second lever you can obviously pull is the launchpad itself. Now, depending on the launchpad you use, there'll be more demand from the actual launchpad versus from, let's just say, your communities. So for example, Legion drives quite a bit of demand, right? There's a lot of investors on there already. And so you'll see much more demand from them compared to some random launchpad nobody uses, right? So try to use a reputable launchpad. Now, the third way to drive demand is actually viewing this as kind of like almost like an NFT allow list in 2021, right? Where you had a lot of exclusivity around being able to get into these NFT sales. So you want to do that with these token sales where you want to actually find partners and partnered communities and let them get into the deal and get guaranteed allocation. Now, this is why you basically want to make the deal attractive and make sure there's more demand, because if you go to somebody, you're like, hey, I have the sale, it's unlimited cap, you can put in as much as you want, there's no exclusivity, right? But however, if you go to a community and you tell them, hey, we already have over, let's say 100% demand on the sale just from our own community. Do you want me to guarantee a certain amount of allocation for your community? Do you want to make sure that these people get in? Then people will do that because now you're adding a lot of value to their community members. So that's just something that you can do as a lever. Now, another big piece here obviously is KOLs and KOL communities. You do want to take over the timeline and you do want to structure arrangements with KOLs, make sure that they're incentivized to actually go out there and share your product or your pre-sale, right? So that's obviously something where with the TRIA campaign, they were number 2 on Kaito. A lot of it was due to the groundwork we did before. We've obviously talked about KOLs, about partnering with other communities, your own community. One thing I do want to really mention here is it really helps to have a B2C facing aspect of this, right? So if you have some way for people to get involved and use your application, let's say you're a DeFi app, if they can come in and basically deposit a certain amount of capital, and then that capital then allows them to get allocation into the sale, that's far more interesting. So if, for example, with Almanac's sale, what they did is they actually made one of the criteria how much money you deposited into their wallets. So that drove TVL for them, that drove fees for them. And then obviously users did that because they wanted to get into the pre-sale. And that has this benefit where you get this like golden flywheel where you get more demand because people want to get into the pre-sale. And then that demand makes you more attractive to potential investors because they see that you're getting traction. So you do really have a big advantage if you have a B2C aspect to your product and you want to integrate that in. One of the things you could do is when you partner with Cookie on their ACM basically campaigns, what they'll do is actually allow you to set these different actions for people to actually be incentivized to do to then be able to get allocations. So with a Cookie campaign, for example, you can set different criteria like them depositing to your wallet or them buying a certain subscription. And then also they get incentivized to post about your product because with Cookie, it's a mindshare platform. So if they are in the top 50 in the Snapper or C-Snapper leaderboard, then they also get access to the sale. So there's a lot of ways to do this, but essentially the whole thing is it has to be very well orchestrated and you have to really create these different demand levers and stack them on top of each other. And then they make each other stronger. So use the product, talk about it, and then you get access into the pre-sale. And then what that does is because people are using the product and talking about it, there's way more demand for the actual pre-sale. So then other people will start talking about it more because now they also want to get into it. So it's kind of this golden flywheel that everything drives each other. And that's kind of what happens with these oversubscribed sales. Now, one thing to really keep in mind here is you do want a decent amount of timeline and heads up on this. So a lot of mistakes I'm seeing with teams is they just come into this being like, hey, we'll just do a pre-sale. We're not really going to do much marketing around it. They're not outreaching to communities. They're not working with KOLs. They're not using Infofi or any of these platforms. They're kind of just like, hey, let's just do a sale and just assume our own community and the Launchpad's community is going to oversubscribe. That's not how it works. It might work if you have a really interesting product, but in many cases, you're just going to lose a lot of marketing juice, right? The goal here is you do one massive oversubscription because what that signals to the market is there's a lot more demand for your token than can be filled at that price. So if you raise at a 50 million FDV from the public and it's 1x or 1.2x oversubscribed, yeah, there's like basically the token's probably going to do okay, but it's not going to do amazing. There's going to be a lot of sell pressure from the pre-sale. On the other hand, 100x oversubscription just signals to the market that the token price at what it was offered is very low. So now the market's like basically views this as this token's going to do well. If the token does retrace, a lot of people are sitting on the sidelines waiting to buy a dip, right? So you have to understand a fundamental principle here, which is the principle of scarcity. Scarce things are more valuable. And you also have to understand this principle that in crypto, the outsized returns go to the winners, right? That's just how it works. And you want to be viewed as an outsized winner. And one of the ways you can do that is by making sure your pre-sale does extremely well. So this is a huge marketing moment. This is a huge timeline takeover moment for your company. So put the work in to really get the word out and make sure this is executed well. Now, if you're asking, okay, we are completely swamped in-house. We perhaps don't have the resources to do this. We don't have the connections to do this. We don't have basically access into every great KOL. How do we actually scale something like this up? Because this is not something where it's like you really need to put a lot of work in and there's a lot of operational and logistics stuff. So you kind of basically for a few months have to go all cylinders. In that case, what I really recommend is just book a call with me, right? Like at Crescendo, we can run you through our process and basically see if we can help you really oversubscribe your sale 50x or more, right? And that's the goal. Obviously, your product has to be great and there has to be a ton of organic demand. Valuation has to be great. But if you're looking for a team to work with on the actual pre-sale side, or you feel like in-house, this is way too important of a moment to just kind of let it rely on a very swamped team, then reach out to me. So guys, thanks for watching the video. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And you can also subscribe to the YouTube channel or follow me on X just so that you keep getting more insights like this. Thanks for watching.